Wow, that was a great introduction. Yeah, so there you go. So Customer Worthy is actually a book I wrote, and I kind of just want to say, starting off, just customer. We've been talking about AI and customer experience, but customers are why we're here. Customers built this incredible building. They paid for our lunch today. They pay our salaries. Customers are important, and AI, if you're going to look at what's working, what's not working, your ultimate objective is to change the customer experience, to get the customer to buy more, to save your customer time, to add value, and that ultimate measure when we look at AI and we look at machine learning is customer. So I think that's obvious. We forget. As Amy was mentioning, when at different times I've had like a number of like PhD statisticians working with me. And sometimes you'll be like at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, and you're trying to figure out something. The shortcut is often, well, what will change the customer's experience? What will make them happier? What will save them time? What will have them now go and tweet or create some type of emotional kind of connection or something? It's all measurable, right? So we should build that into AI. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And also the fact that we kind of miss as we go through this is customer experience is extremely, extremely emotional. It's also unbelievably intimate. And the intimacy piece, I think, is a piece that we're really going to need to pay attention to, and we're going to talk about here. So I want you all to think about your own customer experience, think about your life. How many people here in the morning or wake up to an alarm that's like a song that you have programmed in? Anybody? A couple people? And does the song that you wake up to, do you wake up to the same song every day, or do you wake up to a playlist? Okay? Now, because we're also all like AI and logical people, the voice inside your head starts to come down, get to the point of, you're making me a little bit nervous because now we're getting a little close to home. But think about it, that's where your customer is too. As we're talking about listening devices and chat and this whole idea of this intelligence and everything, we're talking about curating an experience. So I want you to think of that curated experience, and here we are in our kitchen as the thought of your kitchen as you're waking up in the morning. And for you, you smell coffee, if coffee is your favorite thing in the morning. Or you smell bacon. And that song that you had, that's your favorite song, is now playing for you. Maybe you smell flowers, and it's your favorite type of flower. And as you walk through your more modern and digital house, on the different screens are playing some of your favorite things. Your reminders for the day, pictures of maybe what you did last weekend, where your vacation is going to be in 2 months. All these types of things are all possible now because of AI and because of digital. Okay? Now think about it. This optimal experience you have is all possible right now because of AI. Anybody know IFTT, if this, then that? Right? So everybody should just go and play with that a little bit, just once, because all those things we're talking about in terms of the music playing, coffee being made, or anything else, if all those different experiences are all programmable now. And we're actually at a point right now where, while it's programmable now, not everybody can do it. We're talking about customer support with Xfinity and all that. People are going to be looking for that device or whatever that's in the center there, but you have smart sockets. You can actually make dumb devices slightly smarter. Can turn on the coffee machine, right? Can turn on a blender, can turn on a toaster, can heat all those things up. All these different devices that have been stupid are getting smarter and smarter and smarter. And what's happening is, if you think about that image where we started, that blur of virtual and ideal is getting closer and closer to real and physical. And that's really what we're talking about today as we talk about artificial intelligence, is how do all these things work together and communicate so they wrap around what I need, what I'm interested in, and it's a highly, highly curated experience. And then what's capable within my home, there's a whole other piece to that, which is a little bit of machine learning. I can have great ideas, but if all my devices, if I don't have all those different pieces that are in here, it's not going to be ideal yet. But that's also where the opportunity is. So picture yourselves now, we'll get back to being a little bit more intimate. So on your screen, you get on the screen that's maybe popping up in the kitchen, maybe in the hallway, it says that you got a message. You get a text, you get an email at the same time, and then all of a sudden there's a knock on your door. Okay? You may get a little nervous, but you walk out and you see that, laid out in front of you out your door is your favorite breakfast with your favorite drink, all prepared exactly the way you would like it, because all your devices and everything else have learned and have been able to go and curate that. Now, I want us to go back. This is not the hard part. Okay, this idea that I'm talking about is how do I choreograph that optimal experience and how are all the parties related? So when we talk about AI and machine learning, yes, the math is hard, but executing on that math is even harder. And because I'm a numbers guy, and you're going to see we're going to go and monetize the experience. It gets very kind of black and white in terms of what I can afford and what I can justify and what I can't. And creative people get very upset. Okay, they're like, you've really taken all the fun out of this. You told me what to send, who to send it to, how to say it, and all that. I'm like, believe me, there's more than enough work for creative, and creative is going to be the difference because the emotion in terms of your image here, okay, we're talking about personal. So this image is related to this person for the rest of time. And if we take it a step further, you may have asked, who paid for that breakfast to show up at my front door? Everybody with me? A little creepy, right? But now we get into the monetized point. You think, well, it's impossible. There's no way anybody's going to go and pay for my breakfast to be there. And how did that happen? Oh, well, DoorDash, right? Uber Eats, all these things are Grubhub, all these things are all possible right now. But somebody came up with a cost model to say it's worthwhile for this individual to get this meal the way that they liked at this time. Now, we know there's a give and take here. Somebody wants something. So in the scenario, it was human resources looking at retention of their favorite employees. They actually saw some of this kind of reference before today. The objective is, how do we make this person happy? How do we make their day start ideally? And now, how do we get them to share it? And I thought I'd be very blatant in terms of we talk about monetize. Okay, I can monetize this experience. If you will go and share your image with what also is on that mug, I'll pay you $5 to snap it, to put it on LinkedIn, to put it in all these different places. I'm going to multiply the impact of that for your friends and family because we want to be the #1 employer. We want everybody else to subscribe to this service and to differentiate. Is this person going to leave if they start to have that type of experience? And while everything we're talking about today, a lot of it has been how do we improve our current services, think about how disruptive these types of things are. So I work in innovation and I work in creating new systems and trying to actually simplify everything so these types of things are possible. And this is just living in the customer's context. But also, somebody's paying all those fees, and the idea of the simplicity of, well, $50 seems like a big deal. If I can just hit that button and all these things happen automatically, takes my picture, puts an image out there, and tracks me, then all is good. Anybody interested in this type of an offer? You may have been interested in the breakfast, but am I going to go and hit that button and tell the world that this is how I'm living? Maybe not. Breakfast served like this, messages served like this, the Xfinity remote going out to households, going and wiring somebody's house, the messages that follow up, all of these things are hard. They are physical. We can get in, again, my math guys and I, we get very good with theoretical and numbers and volumes, and 30 million is a lot of people to be working with. So how do I go and segment and go and target this? And how do I get these 11 different, these are departments, not people. So we're talking, in order to get that breakfast there, there's probably 80 or 90 people involved. And how do you go and get everybody to wrap around and make this the optimal event that they're going to have? And that's really what I was looking at. And this is not pushing or telling you to go buy the book, but I figured out something that gave me a way to go and speak to all those different groups called the Customer Experience Matrix, which is very hard to see from there. But I'm going to tell you how this works, because the idea was, why can't we look at our business from the customer's perspective so that everybody understands it? So very simply, across the top, those 15 different stages have nothing to do with you or your company. That's the customer life cycle. So the customer becomes aware of a need. They go and they gather information about that. They go and identify what their criteria are going to be. They go all the way through, and then you see they have use, they collect, they pay. And these are actually all then mapped, as you're going to see, back to my internal system. So these people, everybody understands the entire beginning to end of this life cycle. And then on the left are really, it's going to turn into the company's business processes or the different roles. And the idea was, and this is where the creative comes back in, how do I coordinate and manage all those different messages across this whole process? So what we do is we have the customer view, which is we just talked about. When the doorbell rang and I got a text and my screen came up, that's all on the awareness level. By the way, there's something at your door. Okay, so that was planned. And then we had that when we came back, you're probably going to be looking around to see where that came from. Right? Is the food poisoned? Is it okay? Is there a confirmation message when I walk back in saying, everything's fine, everything's great, you're one of our favorite people, we want to go and help raise that level. Then you see the selection and shop. Did we get the food right? Do we give you cold oats, or are the oats hot or cold? All those types of things. So this comes back to that whole idea of the choreography of how do you do this. And by the way, is there an option that I can opt in to have my breakfast served like this every day? Okay, is that the type of relationship that I can have, and who's going to go and fund that? So again, we look across all the different functions, and what you see is by using that framework, and the idea with that framework is to try to simplify something that seems impossible, so all these people could have the same mental model of how this works. So we're actually designing backwards to AI. So we're actually going to see this, if this is what we think we can do, if we can make this optimal event, who are all the parties, what are all the steps we need to go through, where can things go wrong, and then how are we going to track and measure this to make sure it's successful? So the idea of the framework, again, is now you're seeing how we're starting to link this to all of our internal processes. The first level is that customer view. The level with the heads and the people there you saw are the different department views, right? That's actually all those different people have to communicate and correspond. Simple enough so far? So people know that what they're engaged in, they know what their objective is. The systems piece is a really, really big deal we've been talking about. The whole idea of integration or passing messages. This is also a federated design, right? So Grubhub or Uber Eats, or those are systems that are outside of our realm. So we have to coordinate with them. We have to make sure the message was delivered. We have to make sure the breakfast was delivered. If we contract with somebody, we have to make sure they didn't take 30 lunch or breakfasts and just throw them on the ground and collect the check and go away. All those types of things are kind of built into this design. Then you go through and you see, what's the objective? And this is the piece, I think, on the AI and the machine learning part is, this is how we're connecting our strategy down to this execution layer. Because everybody, or a lot of people say that's not possible. But because of what we can do from a data standpoint right now, we can actually take this level of granularity, that individual experience of that breakfast, and connect all the pieces and look at the requirements and how do we actually get that done. And then the last part is the value. So are we actually able, what would it be worth to us to retain this employee? What's the impact going to be? Would they stay with us 2 years longer? Will they tell all their friends because of the university they went to, or their background in education, or who's their Facebook friends, or their Snapchat friends, that somehow we have some information about their circle? We'd like them to come and work in this building. So will you go and tell everybody about the breakfast? Okay? You think about these types of solutions. If you can think of this is the beauty of where we are at this point in technology and digitalization. You can come up with scenarios like this. You can map them out like this. And before I go and do it, I can go and make sure that I can cost justify this. Now, if you know that we're going to Amy's house and giving Amy breakfast, we may have some other people that want to go and sponsor that breakfast. Okay? You're familiar with this model when you look at how Google works in selling ad pages and selling space. People will go and try to get in front of people once they've gone and they've calculated how much that relationship or that attention is worth. Right? We're really buying or using people's time, and that's what we're going to monetizing. Now, I threw this slide in there. This is actually out of context, but in every interaction, these are the 9 things we want to go and achieve. Okay, so in all those different slots that we just talked about, we want to make sure, if we can, always identify who the customer is. David kind of pointed that out before. If I can identify you, and so, I think in SaaS we talk about anonymous and non-anonymous. But if I can identify who you are, then I can start to put it into a context, recognize you based on your past relationships, different channels that you've been involved in, your whole history and your profile. Right? So from there I can go and serve and resolve the issue. Is everything right? Is everything correct? Oh, how can I help you? And you also want to turn that around a little bit and prepare somebody, but by the way, yes, there's more. So can I upgrade your relationship at that point of interaction? It's the best time to go and do that. I also want to see if I can grow the relationship. Did you know we have this and that? Can I extend the relationship? We have these other services. Because you like this and your reaction was so great, would you like to go and gift this for another person? Do you have neighbors and friends? And all these things can be built into that interaction. So we should be looking for those things. And then collect referrals. So what you see here is we've taken the customer lifecycle. We've taken the customer experience across all those different departments. So we're giving everybody a business or connection back to the customer. And this intelligence layer is what makes this all possible. So we can actually go and execute, we can actually, like I said, go and choreograph all those individual activities, and then we can measure over time how well they're succeeding. And how well they're succeeding overall across the entire customer lifecycle, but how each of the individual components we can get pings back on how are they working. Are the vendors that we're depending on actually delivering? Or do we need to go and swap them out? Are we looking at their service level agreements, or are they meeting those? This can all be built into the framework so that I don't have to go and start doing these ad hoc. It makes it much less expensive if we think of it in advance. So that's definitely impossible to read, but the idea is that every individual contact can be programmed so that everybody delivers, knows what the messaging is, what the requirements are for each piece that you go through there. So the idea of monetizing it is going and looking at each of the individual components, an email, a website, a store visit, have these different kind of subsets or these slots that I can go and I can put a message into. So when we're talking about AI, I need to go and populate each one of these, which is very, very difficult or I'll say impossible, because of the extent of variability and personalization that we're talking about, just the volume of messages that are coming together. So one of the things that you see in AI is this whole idea of content generation, content management. So I need a robot, not just individual people going and copywriting and going that, because it'll overwhelm you right away. Right? But when we're talking about natural language processing, we're talking about all the things that have happened in text. We're talking about, even from a video standpoint, being able to go and compose the optimal message. That's where the AI is kind of going and feeding all these different pieces. And this is not that different than this old picture of what Amazon does. And really what I want to point out there is Amazon kind of figured this out. I don't know if everybody knows, like on an Amazon page, each individual slot here competes for that space. It is reviewed automatically, nonstop, every minute of every day. It is continuously A/B tested. If you're not earning and you're not progressing the client back to their projected lifetime value, it just goes away. Okay? So all of these different slots can compete with each other. Different vendors, different mentions and all, again, can be tied back. And it's all tracking back to what do I ultimately want to achieve. Now, if you're saying, well, gee, this is kind of complex for doing this individual, like breakfast to a person, or just this individual product piece, you're right. That's complex, but when I take it up to a corporate level, I bring it up to a Comcast level, it's actually much, much more complex. The reason why it works for Amazon is because it's one of their core principles. They look at lifetime value. How much are these customers worth to me over the length of time? And I'll make that investment with Whole Foods. I'll make that investment to be local. I'll make sure my stores are there. I'll put different things in the boxes. I'll tell you, you don't have to return something. It's cheaper for you to keep it because they know their numbers, and nobody can compete with that. Right? They know what the highest value interests are for all their different clients, and that's what they go and work with, and that way they're able to achieve this locally, but also they've made themselves very difficult to compete with. Now, from a campaign standpoint, this is actually built into these frameworks. So this idea of this continuous testing, this continuous improvement, kind of like that page before, I can A/B test everything. So in the loop, I have my winner, my evergreen kind of winning program. I have an alternative challenger, and then I have my control group. This continuous feed then is just circulating through the system. So I take a little bit more of an engineering or mechanical approach to go and make sure that every element in every slot that we looked before keeps earning, keeps working. And I've monetized that. So where we pulled in the Amazon piece before, we say, well, gee, how is this different than what people were doing from going and doing regression before? And I thought this from AWS was actually probably one of the simplest slides that long-time business people would get and new people would get. The old way is to take rules and data and go and do programming and hope you hit it, right? And choose your battles. And because I had to make the investment in advance to go and get an answer to a question, Now I'm taking the answers in the data and I'm going in and reverse engineering. I'm letting the data and the new tools do the work. So I can learn a lot more. I've reduced my cost of asking questions because I can learn a lot more with very, very large sets of data. Now, when we talk about how complex this is and how valuable it is, this is just applications of artificial intelligence in marketing. And I bring it up in marketing because marketing kind of sets the expectations from the customer standpoint, what's going to happen downstream, so in delivery and in service. But you get a sense of just how big these are, and then you can see that where machine learning is, propensity modeling, and different AI applications. Again, this is kind of generic, but just gives you an idea that this isn't a new thing. What we're talking about is really how this is going to evolve. But it's not just a plug-and-play kind of scenario. Right? So when we look at the AWS stack, and if one of your senior executives is here and they say, we should just buy this and look how smart we're going to be. We can do all this personalization, customization, and we're going to make a lot more money. That's not how it works. As a matter of fact, that's a recipe for disaster. If you don't go through the framework and you don't go and look at all the different elements that you're going to go and manage, you're not going to be able to go and execute on this because that whole team, those 11 different groups, have to all be connected. Now, one of the advantages of going through the framework the way that we did was everybody at the organization starts to understand the role of artificial intelligence. You don't have to hold classes. You don't have to go and explain how code works and how formulas work and how you're advancing. You can actually take it much further down the game and say, if you want to do this and if you want to personalize, well, how would you do that? What are you interested in? What doesn't work? On the math side and the AI and the data scientist side can say, you know what? We can answer these 3 questions. Would that help us get better? So again, relatively simple framework. And this is really at the simplest level. I can go channel by channel through each of these different groups, and you'll see how it all breaks down to the different pieces and how I can actually move through this value model. So our first idea is to be able to go and visualize. Okay, the kind of storyboard what we were talking about for the breakfast. Monetize it. How much would it be worth? Again, from the human resources example, can we grow our retention rate? Can we grow our attractiveness? Maybe reduce our acquisition rate for the top, be the top employer in town. I can go and I can monetize all those things. And then I can go and do all the analysis. What's the optimal way to go and do that? What are those day points that we can actually go and play with? And then how you go and prioritize. What programs do we do first from an execution standpoint? Then I can roll into continuous optimization. Now this does, because we're with data scientists, when I put all this information together and all those channels together, it's an algorithm. I've got the entire comprehensive life cycle of customers, all the different action points I have, and now I can go and I can try to go and optimize that. What's different is my ability to go and execute in all those different channels. They're not all smart channels. Just like the kitchen, call center may have some capabilities, may not. My vendors may have some different connections. They were talking about the ERP system connection before. All those different systems, I have to be able to look at them differently and have smart systems and not so smart systems. Everybody with me so far? This kind of is big and gives you a little bit of a headache because you're like, wow, that was really hard to do today. But wait, there's more. The reason why this is really important right now is enhanced reality, virtual reality, all the new realities. Remember before I said digital and physical realities are starting to blur? So people's expectations, by the way, and I have Naveen here who I work with on innovation all the time. People can't unsee things. So I hate to apologize to you, but tomorrow morning when you wake up, if somebody knocks on your door when you walk outside, there's not going to be breakfast there. But we all have the same mental model that, what, it's not that far away. If I see that, it's possible. Why can't I go and get that? Well, we're creating now all these new dimensions of reality. So there's a book from Joe Pine called Infinite Possibilities. Now, there's good news and bad. Actually, I'll say bad news, because we're already tapped out. Everybody's already working at 100%. But Infinite Possibilities was written about, I think, 7 years ago. And it was really looking at what happens in virtual reality and enhanced reality and then all these different dimensions of reality. The book will actually give you a headache, but it's worth reading because each one of those dimensions of reality is actually a new opportunity for a revenue stream. If I'm Comcast and I'm going with 5G, and I can have virtual reality experiences in the house, not just for gaming, but for doing my work. And data scientists, if you really want to have a great, just wall everybody out and start walking through data and have this incredibly immersive experience, put on VR and start like walking through your data sets. You can't hear anything else, you can't see anything else, it's crazy and you get focused. It'll drive you a little crazy after a while, but take it and use VR to go and actually look at data and you're in a whole different place. Your focus is unbelievable, everything else, but that's going to kind of like become the standard as we go forward. But this idea is I'm building products, you see that the variables are time, space, and matter. So there are some quantum physics aspects to everything that we're talking about. I'm very negative on reporting for reporting's sake. Building reports, building tabs, and all those things, because I don't think we're going to have time to go and look at reports. Okay, there's a quantum mechanics thing, right, that once you observe something and touch something, you've changed it. But we're going to be getting so competitive that I think all of this kind of learning is going to be the real machine learning, getting smarter and smarter, and we're not going to have time to go and look at the results. We're just going to kind of just keep building on things and try to beat our baseline. While we're doing that, we're getting all these new dimensions. So it's just something to think about is how am I going to be able to handle and get ahead of that for all my customers. So everybody good? We've got some new math challenges if you want to go and use if this, then that to go and figure out what's next and how are you going to do that. And since we've got a lot of very logical people in the room that are kind of wondering and getting nervous, like how did all my machines know all those different things? You're probably asking that when the coffee machine was going on, shouldn't there be like some check step that goes and says, are there coffee beans in the machine already? And is there water and all those types of things? So when I start to lay out that framework and I have the needs and requirements of each of the individual devices to build and curate that optimal experience, there's a lot of legwork to go and do this. However, using a framework like I was showing you before, it's all possible. I can go and anticipate and build all these things. So, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for staying through, and this has just been a great day. It's great to have data scientists and everybody else. This is the real deal. I've been very impressed by today and by Comcast. Really fantastic to be here. If you have any questions, please feel free to stop by.